Hello, sweet, beautiful souls. Welcome back to Divine Alignment. Today's topic is truly, I believe, has the capacity to absolutely set you free. So let's dive right in. So before we dive in, if you are watching the video, you will see I have many less inches on my hair. It was the wildest thing. I felt so called to chop off all my hair. And I really just see this as like a shift in, or rather a releasing of all of the energies that, if you have been listening and watching, I have been going through some massive realizations, growth, ascension, and hair holds so much energy. And I just was like, it didn't even feel like a choice. It didn't even feel like a choice. It just felt like, yes, we have to release this. And so here we are. It feels so good. It feels like I lost like 10 pounds. Anyways, this actually does tie into today's topic because today we're going to be talking about judgment, judging ourselves, judging others. And this is something we do, all humans, all humans. It's part of this human experience. And, I really just want to begin by setting the stage in that there's nothing inherently bad with judgment. And there's nothing wrong with you in that you do judge. There are poor judgments, or rather, there are good judgments and poor judgments, right? So, judging an apple judging an apple versus another apple that is perhaps moldy and this one is not, you would like to choose the non-moldy apple. That is a good course of judgment. The problem here lies when we get in and begin to go deeper into the judgments that we hold towards others, even towards places, society, and ultimately towards ourselves. This has been such a big unraveling for me over my life. And if I'm being perfectly honest, I will say one of the absolute biggest needle movers for me in my health and my growth and growing spiritually, really, because I just don't think that we cannot reach our highest potential and our greatest growth as a spiritual spirit soul if we are holding judgments. And so many of them come pre-wired into us from a very young age, which that's kind of where I want to begin, is many of your judgments are not yours. And I want you to begin to see and witness that many of the judgments that you are holding are simply been programmed into you from a young age, not because your parents are bad, not because society was whatever, all of these things, but literally as protection mechanisms. So when we can begin to zoom out and see, judgment is actually a protection mechanism. Okay? But it's really important to first understand that when we are judging others, it's not doing any harm or any good to them. All of that energy is within you. All of that energy is within you. And a big way that I find helps me shift and move through a lot of my own judgments for myself and others was through the law of one. This is a channel text. I've spoke about it before, but it's a channel text by Ra. I highly recommend it. There's even a free version. You can download the whole text. I have the Audible, but like you do what you prefer. And essentially illuminates that we are all one, but there is much more that goes into that. And when we can really recognize that we are all one, any thought that you would be having towards another is actually a thought towards yourself. Any judgment that you're having towards a judgment or towards another is a judgment towards yourself. So if you find yourself judging others, all of that energy is in the body. It's in your body, not in theirs. Now, if we look at energetics, are they going to pick up on it in some way? Perhaps. Perhaps. That's why we can sense and feel things from another. But the harm that it's really doing is to you, because that energy will always make its way back to you in some capacity and way. And so when we see that these projections, these thoughts, and this does not matter. Rings true for whether these are judgments about a person that they're doing something bad, or if your judgments are rooted in jealousy, and which is ultimately rooted in lack and scarcity, and that they have something that I desire. Now, if you've been around like personal development and whatnot for a while, I'm sure you've heard before, like, don't be jealous of people because they're just mirroring to you what's possible. But that can be really hard if you are really feeling it and you still have all of your trauma and baggage and beliefs. Really, it's really these beliefs and identity that, like, I don't have it and I'm not enough to have it, and so they have it, and so I see that I don't have it. Like, it's not enough to just know that with the mind. And so I really want to bring this knowing down into the body. Okay, because we can only do so much knowing with the mind. And my aim with you hearing this is for you to allow some of these truths to begin to percolate down from the mind and into the body. So as you are listening, just beginning to feel, perhaps you've even began to sense or bring to mind who you hold judgment towards, what you hold judgment towards, and where you feel it. I would invite you to begin to just get curious as you're listening and watching. Where do I sense and feel this judgment? It's really important because it is a huge somatic aspect. There is a huge somatic aspect to judgment, because if we feel actually very calm and safe and have regulated our nervous system, I believe that's like 90% of the, I don't even want to call it a battle, and that's 90% of the process of releasing judgment. If we feel safe in our body, in our being, there is no need to jump into fight, flight, freeze, fawn, and try to and see others and feel the need to judge as a protection and coping mechanism. Okay? So I believe why this is such a big topic, and I'm feeling so called to talk about it right now, is because we are, as everyone knows, we are in this big awakening, this big process. And part of the crumbling and destruction and collective shadow work that has been happening, it is an invitation to judgment is going to be a huge part of shadow work and releasing what is no longer us, because you are not your judgments of you or others. You are not your judgments. And part of truly growing and ascending and creating and birthing this new paradigm is going to be releasing these, period. Because if we can ascend and live from our heart, there is actually no need to judge. I want to bring in an example because I noticed the other day, and this is a big part of what prompted this, and then my guides were very clear that this is a collective thing that needs to be talked about. But the other day I had a friend This is wild, you guys. So I actually was in all of my releasing I have been doing, and just letting go of old identities and parts of myself. I I want to clarify parts of myself that don't serve me. I'm really coming to this place of like creating every moment. Anyways, I did this exercise, which I highly recommend, or I will offer to you. Um, I brought to mind all of my people in my life, and I just began to take inventory. Who's serving me and where I'm going and who's not. And I started thinking back to old friends that I don't even talk to anymore. Um, they're kind of like in my life, but not really in my life. And I just did some like I lovingly release you. Because the thing is if we're trying to call in something new into our life, friends, partnership, job opportunities, career opportunities, uh, magic and miracles, we have to create space for them. And for me, that meant releasing of a lot of things. I was like, I'm ready for more. So I have to let go of of the things taking up space energetically. So I just did some energetic releasing of friends that are no longer really in alignment with who I am and where I'm going. And if this sounds harsh, it can be, but it's not that they did anything wrong or that they're bad or anything. I lovingly, I send them love, and I also release myself from them. And that's okay to do. It's part of our growth and evolution and ascension and journey. Like, people come into our lives, some people for a long time and others for a certain period of time, for a day, for a week, for a month, for 10 years. It all depends. So this one friend, we were friends for a very long time, actually. So this was a bit of a challenging one for me. And as I just sent her love and I said, I believe I did my process, all of my things. And the next day she messages me. The next day. So I'm like, oh my gosh, what is she going to say? The message ended up being a huge confirmation as to the decision I made. She didn't say anything bad or mean. It just was like a very like kind of like a left field comment after we haven't talked for years. And I was just like, wow, we haven't talked for years. Like, and so I start going into like my ego of like, we haven't talked for years. Wouldn't she first want to ask how I am? Wouldn't she start by saying, like, telling me how she is, or like anything other than just this out of left field comment? And I really sat with this for a while, for days. And I found myself very much in my human of like, wow, that was really uncalled for. I can't believe she did that. And it really just dropped in so clearly yesterday morning on my morning walk, that I was holding that judgment towards her. And I started thinking of all of the things that cause people to say things that they don't mean or that aren't necessarily whatever. Like things people do that are just that we question. And I started thinking, okay, we live in a very toxic world. If people are not actively detoxing their bodies, I know for a fact she's also on multiple medications. I know for a fact that she does not eat very healthy and very clean. I know that she does not drink filtered water. I bring these as very human things, but they are things that play a role. I also know that she has trauma because we all do. Um, but having been good friends with her and knowing her past and knowing her stories and as I started bringing all of these to mind, I now it's not that I wanted to like go and be best friends with her again, but all of a sudden it went from a charged feeling I was having to neutral. It was just neutral. I was like, oh, yes, we all do things that we don't mean sometimes. And if we're not actively detoxing and eating healthy, like I believe this is why actually like I say these things because I want you to have so much love and compassion for your fellow brothers and sisters because chances are you do something for your health because you listen to me and you're here. You're probably into health and wellness in some capacity, or at least aware of it, or at least try and eat as healthy as you can. But like for the average person who is not eating healthy and eating McDonald's and not drinking filtered water, like I would be making very bad decisions and saying very odd things. So I bring that first to the forefront to say that this can be one level of neutralizing some of your judgments of perhaps people you see on the street. The next level would be to really begin to see that people are carrying around really heavy weights, traumas and beliefs and imprints that they've probably been carrying with them their whole life. When I began my work as a hypnotherapist, I've shared this before, but going from traditional therapy, and I'm not saying all therapy does this, but for me, traditional therapy very much made me mad at my parents because it was like, oh, that's why you have these problems. It's because your parents did all of these things. I just was, and every time where I'd go to a therapy session, it was talking about it, talking about all the things they did wrong, talking about why I messed up because of the things they did wrong. And I was like, wow, they're really messed up. I'm really messed up. That's what I remember from therapy. When I began doing hypnotherapy, I and working with the subconscious and these deeper beliefs, I started seeing that, oh my gosh, like these are two incredible humans that literally did the best that they could with what they knew. Period. And they had their own trauma, they had their own beliefs. And so as I begin to see the world in this way, I look at people now and I just think, oh my gosh. The greater the horrible act, the more I feel so much sadness because I just think I can't even imagine the amount of sadness and trauma and what that person has been through and what is going on in their mind and body for them to feel like that is an adequate and sufficient and and okay thing to do in the world and to respond. So many people are suffering so deeply that their behaviors are simply ways to numb their pain. We all have different ways of numbing pain. We all do. Food, alcohol, drugs, shopping. And then there are the ones that make the news of shootings and rapes. And like, I'm not saying any of these things are good or right, but I do see that they are perpetuated and I believe driven by an underlying deep wound and sadness and anger guilt and fear. That is what is driving these things. And so if we can look at people with this same compassion, it doesn't mean that we make what people do right. It doesn't mean any of it is right. But when we can see people as a flawed human being, just like we are, just like everyone is, who is working through their stuff in the best way that they know available right now, we can begin to have a lot more compassion. So, if now you've been able to feel this towards others and want to flip the mirror to yourself, because the interesting thing is that I have noticed, I feel to be true, is that the more someone is judging others, the more they're judging themselves. So, where are you judging yourself? What are you judging yourself for? What are you judging yourself for? This, like I mentioned at the beginning, was one of the biggest things for me in my healing journey, was forgiving myself. And like just bringing it up gives me full body chills again, because that was the hardest thing I ever did, was to forgive myself. And I don't know why. I found it very easy to forgive others. But when I looked back at the things in my past, I didn't kill anyone or anything like that, but like forgiving myself was truly one of the greatest acts of courage I've ever done, because I realized that by not forgiving myself, I wasn't able to serve. I wasn't actually able to fully help others. I wasn't actually able to feel good in my body. I wasn't able to do the things that I came here to do. And so that's when I realized not forgiving myself was actually selfish. It was actually selfish. And it was actually only adding more things that I would perhaps look back one day and not want to forgive myself for. So often we think that by not forgiving ourselves, we are doing the right thing or punishing ourselves or whatever it is. And we grow up in this weird society where we think that we need punishment, and this doesn't mean that there aren't rules, but as adults, we don't need to keep punishing ourselves for something that we did earlier on in our lives, or as children, or as teenagers, or even yesterday. We just don't. We don't. We have to. We have to, if we want to live into the greatest expression of who we are and be of the greatest service, we have to forgive ourselves. And I really do believe that forgiving yourself, you can receive. I really invite you to reach out to have someone help you with this. And you also have to do it yourself. You really do. People can help you, lead you and guide you, and create the space for you to, create the container for you to, hold the space for you to do this. But you have to make the decision that you were doing the best you could with what you knew. And as I look back at younger me, like, Oh my goodness. I was operating from an unregulated nervous system, which, as I shared at the beginning, if you can regulate your nervous system, my friend, judgment, having judgment can be eradicated. Because when your nervous system is regulated, you have your mental faculties, your body faculties, you have things are working in harmony. Your mind, body, and soul are flowing in harmony. So many people are in fight or flight. So many people, if you are in fight or flight, you have a dysregulated nervous system. And it is very easy to have a dysregulated nervous system with the toxins in our world, with the food that is available, and when we are holding the traumas and beliefs from our childhood, and when we live into, I'm just going to call it the matrix because that's the best word for it. It's very easy, but it can be also very easy to deal with all of the matrix and all of the everything if we actually regulate our nervous system. The key is not running away from the pain and finding and situating everything in our environment. I thought for so long that if I could just spend enough time in nature where no one was bothering me. And then it was so fascinating because I would go to nature and life would still happen. There would be people playing music, or my goodness, the other day I go to the beach and there's an ambulance on the beach. And I'm like, wow, chaos happens everywhere. So the goal is not to get away from the chaos. The goal is to regulate your nervous system so that you may be resilient to it all, so that you may withstand it all, and so that you may release your judgments for others and yourself, knowing that everyone is doing the best they can with what they have. That truly is the key. And so, as we wrap up, I hope you've been aware of these parts in your body that perhaps are talking to you. And as I've mentioned, I think a really big part of this is inner child work. Because where are you feeling it in your body? That means something happened earlier on in your life and the body contracted. And that's where it was felt. And when this happens, the brain and body signals to the body that it doesn't want that to ever happen again. So much of judgment is just trying to protect that little child within you. So when we can give that child love, and I do this in so many of my sessions of giving that child the love that they need and that healing and that it really just acknowledgement. It's so often just acknowledging, like, you're safe. You're safe now. I know you did not have enough back then, but you do now. I know that that experience was scary back then, but it's not still happening. I know that that person triggered you and hurt you and whatever back then, but it's not happening anymore. And so going back and holding that part of you with so much love and understanding and compassion, and realizing that so many of our judgments and perceptions went in ways that we see the world, it's truly a misrepresentation of the world when we are viewing it through the lens of all of our trauma and all of our beliefs. Because when we can actually let go of our judgments, see everyone as a divine emanation of God, no matter what they're doing, as a reflection of the universe, source, divine. We truly can't. We can no longer judge them or ourselves, because you are included in that formula. You are included in that process. You are included in the beautiful creation of the divine. You're part of that. And as you forgive yourself and stop judging yourself, you're actually able to show up greater, to do more, to make more money, to feel healthier in your body, to make more money, to, I think I said that one twice, to call in an actually aligned partnership. You're able to do that so much easier. Because whatever we're judging, we're also repelling. So if you're judging someone's success, you're repelling that. If you're judging someone's relationship, you're actually repelling a relationship. It doesn't matter, like energetics are energetics. I could go into all of the nuances and things and whatever, but like that energy is in you. It's not in them, it's in you. And so just begin to become aware. When you have these judgments come up throughout your day, perhaps just pause. Take a deep breath. Come into the heart, come in to the stomach. Just feel what you're feeling in your body. It doesn't need to be a whole story. There can be if you want to acknowledge that and clear that and heal that, but it doesn't have to be a whole story. Just pausing. Because to be honest, the reality is that, especially if you're a sensitive person, you're probably still going to have judgments, perhaps the rest of your life. Maybe you're picking up on someone else's judgments. I've had that happen. Like a thought will come in and I'm like, where did that come from? That was not me. And then sure enough, it wasn't. So it doesn't mean that we never have judgments ever again, but it means that, first of all, we catch ourselves, and second of all, the charge. It's all about bringing that charge down so that it can be neutral. And that will set you free. And also do the nervous system work, calibrate your nervous system so that so much of the judgment is just fear of survival. It's fear of survival. Judging ourselves. I'm not good enough. And if I'm not good enough, I'm not going to survive. People won't like me. It all goes back to this fear of death. Like, well, if people don't like me, then I'm going to be alone. Then people will abandon me, and then I'll be by myself, and then I might die. Or I'll be homeless, and then I might die. And like all of these things, like you can literally boil every single belief down to that, or fear. And so if we know we're going to be okay, the judgments of ourselves and of others, release. All right, my loves. And so with that, I'm sending you infinite love